Hello, Matt.
What's up? How are you, buddy?
You, man. You're up. How are you doing?
Good.
Kids out of school?
I think this week's the last week. I don't really think they're doing anything, but
You still working on homework and all that stuff with them?
yeah. We've, I think we made it through though. I think we're good. Wife's immediately going out of town on Thursday. She's like, I'm out. See you later.
Is she really?
Yeah. Going to Myrtle Beach.
Girls trip?
Yeah.
Good for her. Goodness.
That's great. I get the house to myself.
Oh, she's taking the girls.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that kind of girls trip. Yeah,
great.
Much better. I thought it was just like her leaving you with
No,
all the kids.
no,
I'm like,
no.
why are you smiling right now? I don't understand why you're so happy with this. I don't understand how you're so happy right now. Oh, well, hey, as promised, we'll do a quick COVID update, you guys. And I don't have a whole lot of new news to report in. It's all good from where we sit. Matt and I were talking earlier before we started the podcast about how bad the traffic is here. Atlanta's notoriously bad for traffic. I think we flip-flop with Los Angeles and a few other cities for the top in the country.
Oh, yeah.
And it's definitely back. I rode my motorcycle a couple of times this weekend, and the traffic on the weekend was as bad, if not worse, than normal.
No, it was worse. Yeah. Started like 2 o'clock on Friday.
Yeah,
I think everybody's just like, we're leaving, going somewhere.
Yeah, and of course, it would be traditionally, you guys, the end of school year. So we have a lot of people that are kind of, I mean, I guess if they're going down to, a lot of people have second homes in Florida from here, things like that. So I don't know if travel's a big deal right now, but man, the traffic just seems insane. Now, as far as the gym is concerned in our metrics, we are seeing a slow improvement of our percentage of people coming back to the gym. New sales have been good, right? So it's been on average a person per day, which is nice. And that's a good month for us. So in a mature studio model, if we're only churning out 3% a month, in our model, that's going to be a handful of people, right? Mm-hmm. And then if we're adding 25 or 30 new people to the gym in a month's time, it's really good. So we're really happy with that. We just switched to a different marketing company, so we'll see what those guys can do, see if they have any chops. But yeah, the general sentiment of the clients, it's way more relaxed. Staff's all doing great. Team's awesome. Like no complaints. It's just a slow roll because like it or not, there are still people that are really freaked out by this thing. And I think it's getting even more divisive, like you're having now that we're open anyway, like regionally, if you are like wearing a mask in your car or whatever, it's like, now everyone's like that's the dumb thing to do. Whereas before being open was the dumb thing to do. So I think it's just a weird time and it's still very divisive. And I think if everybody just gave everybody a little bit of grace and let them own whatever fears and stuff they had, that's fine. I'm just happy as an entrepreneur to be up and running, and glad that, the clients that are coming in here are also happy that we're open. We still have around 35% at this point on virtual and the rest coming to the gym. Mm-hmm. So we still have a pretty hefty virtual business, believe it or not. And I guess it's because we did a good job of it. But
yeah, I mean, they ain't going anywhere else to train if they're not coming to the gym. So, and they're appreciative we have this great tool to give them. So I think
that's a great point. So it's not like, in the past, if we would always say, if someone's not working out with us anymore, it's not like they've quit working out altogether. They've just decided to go somewhere else. And that's a painful reality to hear, but it's true. Whereas right now, I don't think that's the case at all. These are folks that are taking other precautions in their life, and they're not going to a different facility because we're about as safe as we could be. Like we talked about, they're just choosing not to exercise at all. Yep. All right, well, let's get down to the meat of it, Matt. Let's talk about what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, so today, it's a cool topic. We're going to talk about kind of fitness professionals' kind of journey to become entrepreneurs and open their own business.
Yep, it is a great discussion, and questions that I field a lot when I'm doing live presentations. Mm-hmm. So, I speak on the Perform Better circuit, as you know, which is typically more coaches and trainers and some entrepreneurs. But there are a lot of questions from fitness pros about how to become entrepreneurs. Like, I want to open my own gym. Where do I need to start? So today we're going to look at how a fitness professional would relevantly or in the correct way make a transition from fitness pro, instructor to business owner, and the steps that you have to take.
Yep.
So step number one.
Step number one, we listed out, this is the actual business plan.
Yeah, if you'll recall, Matt, I had Tim Fulton, who's my business coach, on the podcast about the 5 successful keys to a startup. Number one was to have a business plan. Do you remember the metrics on what percentage of people have any type of plan? A budget, a marketing plan, a business plan of any sort. Do you remember what the percentage was?
Half the people?
That's what I guessed too, but it ended up being less than 20%. And
I was playing along. I knew the answer.
Oh, you did? Jerk. I'm like, wow, you forgot already? So it's less than 20%. And that was from a study that Tim quoted from the Small Business Association that compiled tons of data. So imagine that less than 20% of all people that want to open a business even have a business plan at all, right? And coincidentally or not so coincidentally, I think it makes sense to both of us that same metric, just under 20%, are the number of businesses that make it through 5 years.
Yeah, it makes sense to me.
I mean, if you have no plan, how do you expect to survive? I think it would be like sheer luck if you were able to survive without a business plan.
It's almost like it's just too hard and people just can't grasp it. So it's just they won't do it.
Well, you're 100% right, because when I talk about building a business plan, the next question that I get is, how would I build a business plan?
Yeah.
So we'll talk a little bit about the things that are in a business plan, and we'll go from there. So first and foremost, what is your business structure? So what do you foresee, your business offering as a service? And it's very important. And let's use basic examples. One would be, I'm going to be a boot camp style business. We would call that team training, 20 to 30 people getting sweaty. That's what I want to do. That's what I like to coach. That's who I'm going to be. Okay, great. Or I'm going to be a one-on-one personal training business. Okay, great. I'm going to be what we do. I'm going to be a small group personal training business, which, by the way, is the best one. But, then you need to decide that, because that's going to dictate the space, the equipment choices, and everything else from here on out. So if you just say, hey, I want to open a fitness business, but I don't know what I want to do, you're going to really struggle. So first and foremost, you have to have a vision for what is your business going to look like. And then you start to build a plan around that, right?
Well, I'd say we obviously settled on small group training. We viewed as the best one to do. I would imagine that a lot of new entrepreneurs out there can't decide on just one. They have multiple things that they think they're going to put in their facility, which is probably not the best thing to do.
I mean, simplification it's one of our core values, but it's also one of the more difficult things to do in business, but it's one of the most important things to do. I could distinctly remember hearing a presentation from the president, was it Tim Cook, who was the CEO of Apple, and he had a room full of people there, and they were at these round top tables that only sat 6 people. And he told the whole room, everything that Apple makes is sitting in the middle of your table right now. Every product that we make. We say no to more good, great ideas so that the things on your table can be amazing. So we say no to 1,000,001 really, really great ideas, but it's not the things that are on your table, and that's why we do it. So I would challenge you as a fitness professional that's moving into entrepreneurship, you have to simplify. You have to make that decision, and that's tough to do, because once you decide your business structure, that then dictates your square footage.
Yep.
And so now we're starting to move into more of the financial realm, right? So where are you going to put it? What are the demographics going to be? If you are a boot camp business, the price threshold is going to be a bit less, so your average income would need to be a bit less, right? So what's your business structure? How many square feet do you need? What does the build out need to look like? Is it going to be high end? Is it going to be based on a lot of machines? Is it going to be based on lots of open floor space? Those things also dictate, a lot about your square footage, but more so about your budget.
Right. Yeah.
So when we talk about budget, to me, this is the thing, the numbers are the part that most fit pros suffer with the most. They have a hard time putting together a pro forma on the business and understanding all the different metrics. What's it going to cost me to build out? What are the tenant improvements, like building the space? And those vary depending on if you're going into a space that's just an empty box that hasn't been developed yet versus a space that needs demolition, that needs to be changed. All of these, where are you going to go? Because there's a price per square foot. Is the landlord going to cover any of those expenses for you or not? And there's 1,000,001 factors that go into this, right? Negotiating a lease, right? Again, what's your overall equipment cost? If you're going to be training a certain number of people, how much equipment do you need? Even if you're keeping it simple, how many kettlebells do you need? How many dumbbells do you need? How are you going to arrange those things, right? Building a brand can be expensive, right? Can you get the name that you want? Registering. There's just 1,000,001 little things that go into this.
You're already stressing me out, man.
I know. I make it sound like it's going to be impossible to do, but what I would like for people to understand is it's not easy. And if it was, everyone would do it. And there's a lot of fit pros out there who think, I'll just start a mom and pop garage gym. I won't go through any of these other processes and I'm going to be fine. But if you look at the statistics that we just talked about, without that solid business plan, you're going to be in the minority if you make it to 5 years. And so if you're assuming that for some reason that you're that much smarter than everyone else, you're crazy. You should look at that statistic and you should be somewhat scared of it. And so it goes back to the biggest pitfall is, again, money, finding and securing the funds. And what I see most often is fitness pros underestimate the amount of capital that it's going to take, or revenues or funds, so to speak, to open a new business. They just don't fully put all that together. Part of that is operating capital as well. So you might be able to scrounge up enough money, to be able to open the fitness business. But if you don't have marketing money set aside and you don't have operating expenses, and like we talked about in other podcasts, if you don't have any personal margin in your life where you can go without living with income for a little bit, you're not going to be able to make it. So all of those things, though, are all encompassed in a turnkey business plan.
Right.
And so if you don't know how to do it, you're going to have to find someone who can help you build a business plan. Now, this is a shout out to franchising. And certainly what we offer as a franchise is the fact that all of this stuff is done for you. So if I was a fit pro in the industry right now, and I was a really good practitioner, and I knew that I could drive an amazing customer experience to make people really happy, unless I just had a burning desire to prove to myself that I could do it on my own and beat the 80% odds, I wouldn't do it. I would buy something. I would buy all of the sort of weaknesses in my game, right? If I didn't have a business plan, buy something that has a business plan. If I didn't know what equipment I needed, buy something. Find a franchise. If you like personal training and you like to be a technical coach, and you looked at Alloy as the fitness franchise, you'd say, oh, this is perfect. So I get to use all of my knowledge, this high-level coaching, from my strength conditioning days, pare that down. I see how they come to, be able to deliver this to regular adults in a meaningful way. And guess what? I'm going to get an equipment list that's super detailed. I'm going to get, the exact floor plan I need. I'm going to get the demographics done and get 4 or 5 choices of where I can move into a facility that makes sense based on what I'm trying to do, right? I'm going to get, a build-out allowance. I'm going to know how much operating capital. I know what my marketing spend is going to be, and I know how to spend that money on marketing. And all of these metrics are just things that are massive shortcuts and could be the difference between sink or swim.
Yeah. What would you say to the fitness professional that would say like, oh, I want to be able to make my own thing, and if I buy a franchise, I can't do that. It's not mine.
Well, there's a couple of ways to look at it. Why are you opening the business? If it's ego related and you simply want to build something that you want to call your own completely, and that you want to know in your heart of hearts that you built it on your own, then that's the way you should go. But just keep in mind, you're running the risk of not making it. And I will tell you this, when we talk about funding and where you find secure funding, because most fitness pros that I know, and this has happened already with the franchise sales that we've had, where you have fitness pros, and the fitness pro is the in the trenches, knowledgeable individual. Some of these folks have already been exposed to Alloy as a license, right? And they're like, man, I love this brand. I want to open my own studio. Well, where are you going to get the money? You typically, if you're going to go to a bank, you're going to have a detailed business plan.
Yeah, banks are definitely.
Well, of course.
Rough.
Of course. So, a franchise is going to give you that detailed business plan. If you're going to go to friends and family, they're going to want to know that you have some plan of attack. So those are 2 sources so far. You can bank finance, you can go to friends and family and borrow money. Most fitness pros that I know, they have some liquidity, but not enough to open a fitness business and run it 9 months during a ramp up, right? They just don't. And so another one is clients. That always seems to be a great source of funding for coaches.
So you got going, right?
Yeah, that's exactly how I got going. I had a client that believed in it, and I had this vision for a place that just did personal training as a dedicated facility. No one had it at the time, and we built it. And we made some mistakes, which I know we're going to touch on in this talk today, not having these business systems. But being first was good. We were well-funded, and we just got lucky, for lack of better terms. We worked hard, but we also got really lucky. So if you're looking for funding, what you're going to need a budget, you're going to need a detailed business plan, or no one's going to mess with you anyway. They're not going to take you seriously. Then you're going to sit down with someone and say, here's the plan of attack. This is exactly what I need, as an investment. And I will tell you that if you don't have that, you're not going to have savvy business friends or clients that are going to invest in your business. They're just not.
Right.
And I will tell you that, again, it sounds like I'm pumping franchising, but there's so many positives now that I've seen both sides of it, and I completely forget about the fact that we have one, right, that we're selling a fitness franchise. I would tell you that investors are looking for that first and foremost. And here's why. There's a buddy of mine who is in South Florida. I know him from the Perform Better circuit that I mentioned. And he came to me and he says, I have a client that wants to invest in fitness and he wants me to run it. But he doesn't want to just invest in a gym like mine. He wants me to find a fitness franchise that we can invest in. And he was kind of saying it like, like he doesn't trust me. I'm like, no, it's not that. What savvy investors understand is that I was talking to my buddy, might meet a new girlfriend and move to Tahiti, right? You don't have as much skin in the game. If this guy's going to front you or girl's going to front you with this money, they want to know that there is a system powering this thing that is greater than the one individual that they're partnered with. And they also know that they're in an end game, which we're going to talk about later. There's much more value if the business is in a franchise structure because the buyer is going to think the same thing that the investor is thinking initially, which is like, this has a lot more value because it's a duplicable system. It's scalable. I can do multiple locations, or I can buy these 10 regional locations. And while they have a good management structure in place, more importantly, there's something else driving it. There's a bigger brand behind it that's driving this thing. And so if you're a fitness pro who's like, hey, I want to do my own thing, if you don't come up with a super solid, tight business plan on your own, you're going to be better off just grabbing a hold of a franchise, and then you're going to attract eyeballs from better potential investors. Even if you know them already, they're going to be like, oh, okay, so you want to buy one of these. It makes sense. I have a friend that is part of a bigger brand, and she invested in a gym that she was working at. And she was super young about the age that I was when I opened. And, just went through investor after investor after investor because I had no history, no business history, had no family help, no money, was just looking for a straight up investor, but built a very detailed business plan. But she was also part of a really big franchise. Ooh. And both of those things really helped, right? A relentless pursuit of finding someone who would say yes, having a very detailed business plan, but that plan was assisted a bit by that brand, sure. Right? And then additionally saying, and there's 5,000 of these worldwide or whatever that is, right? It was very helpful. Wouldn't have gotten that investment if it was like, Jill's Gym or something like that. Right. It wouldn't have worked.
I mean, business plan, you got to prove it first to yourself that you can actually do it and write it out. I mean, you can't, I got this, right? Actually do it and then prove it to the investor, right?
Right. And a lot of times investors, they want to see that they don't want to help you build a business plan. Mm-hmm. They want to know that you've put the time in, that you have an idea of what the heck it is we're trying to accomplish and how we're going to make money with this thing. Mm-hmm. How am I going to get a return on my investment?
Yep.
So first of all, that would be it. Like, start with the business plan. And more importantly, the money side of the business plan is big. And if you don't, buy a franchise because they're just going to give it to you in a box. It's a much smarter way to go, I think. Mm-hmm. Second are business systems. Is that what you have down?
Yep, number 2, business systems.
This would be also operations manual would be a good way to put it. And so if you are simply coaching from a place of this dark art of personal training and you've got a million techniques and, the ways that you bill, and you combine these people into this session, you do this group training session, or you have something tangible and unique about your education and things that you can coach and you can monetize those things, you have to operationalize that, because at some point as the business owner, you're not going to be working in the business. You've probably heard that adage, like, don't work in your business, work on your business. And certainly if you want to grow, we'll talk about end game in a minute, but if you want to have multiple locations or whatnot, you have to have a duplicable operation system. Case in point, like, I'm the perfect example of the way to screw that up. Meaning when we opened here, I just hired a bunch of people that were very talented. They came into the gym and they did their thing. Mm-hmm. They kind of did their business in my business, right? And I was paying them as a 1099 subcontractor, which is technically self-employed, which is not even allowed anymore. But if you look at the thing that made that the biggest mistake, wasn't necessarily the business structure, but it was the fact that no one was following the same system. Mm-hmm. And so at one point in time, they looked around, they looked at all of the, me and the lack of systems that I had, and they felt like they were running their own business. And they were like, hey, let's just scoot out and do our own thing. This is really easy. Now, it turned out it's not as easy as they thought, but I also didn't have very tight systems. So, when I sat down and said, all right, do I want to stay in this business and do this right? Or do I want to, get a real job, quote unquote, because I'm still wearing sweatpants to work? It was, I do want to stay in this business. I love what I do, but I need business systems. And I started, I think I've told the story to you, Matt, I started just paying somebody at the time $15 an hour, which was a lot of money. And we were a very small business and I was still doing a lot of the training. So that was actually coming out of my pocket to follow me around with a clipboard and a piece of paper, and anything that they thought I said or did, that I did multiple times or that was relevant or that I thought I could sell to them, that's something, they would write it down and take notes. And then they basically...
Is this anywhere? Because there's probably some really good stuff in there.
Oh, this journal?
Maybe some things you wouldn't want to hear.
Let me see. Tells sturdy jokes. Says inappropriate things. Yeah. No, thankfully, I don't know where these journals are. They've been lost
They are going
to history. They are. They're on stone tablets. That's how long ago it was. They'll be dug up in a couple centuries, and then we'll figure out the birth of personal training. But this person followed me around and basically recorded anything that looked or sounded like a system, and that became the early version of our operations manual. But if you look at what we have now, it's detailed. It's like you come in at this time, you flip this switch, you turn this on, you turn the TV on here. This is the way you clean your facility. This is how you say hello to a client. This is how you say goodbye. Here's the reward systems we have. Again, that's the advantage, once again, of being part of a fitness franchise that gives you all of this stuff turnkey. So you don't have, what's that?
Already done.
It's already done. So I look at that as a sort of a massive shortcut. If you're not going to buy into a fitness franchise, that means you need to start building. You need to figure out your business plan, like what kind of business you're going to open, how are you going to train people, how many people, size, space, all that. And then you need to build an operations manual so that you can turn to someone else and say, this is how we do things. Mm-hmm. And if you look at all the facets of even a very small business, sales, marketing, budgeting, all those things all kind of point back to your day-to-day operations, right? And how you're able to manage the business overall. So you have to have some type of operations manual, so a systematic approach. So right now, if you're just a really good fitness coach because you're great with people and you look great and you're funny, awesome, but that's not going to run your business. That's not the way to move from fitness professional to fitness entrepreneur.
Well, what's your plan? You're going to be a trainer forever? I don't think I've ever met a trainer that's ever said that, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a blessed person who knows that that's all they want to do and they're already doing it. Mm-hmm. And I think I've run into a few of those in the past, and it's amazing that they're in the right position. They know there's a sort of a glass ceiling on their income. It's sort of like being a teacher, maybe. Like, there's only a certain level of income unless you're going to get a master's or a doctorate and become a principal or whatever that is. This is what I'm going to make. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's a noble thing to do. But most fitness professionals, at least that I talk to, are looking for something more. Absolutely. And they want to take their shot at being a business owner and making bigger money and not physically being on their feet all day and having, crazy hours, all day, every day. If you want to do it, I think it's noble. I think it's great, but I think most people want to do more. If you look at Anthony as an example of that, he was here as a coach for 10 years and basically came, to me and said, hey, I want to try something different. And we had a new women's concept we wanted to try. So we opened the women's gym and he became an entrepreneur. But you know what? He had us to help him fund it. Mm-hmm. We basically funded it. He threw some skin in the game, and then his sweat equity his way up year over year into some ownership. But we had a plan of attack. We had a price per square foot. We knew what equipment to order. We had a business structure going into it. So everything was already done. Yep. He wouldn't have wanted to do all that on his own. That's the part that we brought, and he gave us an operating partner who could go in there and run the thing. That's exactly the relationship that we're talking about here with a fit coach who needs to find an investor to back them. Mm-hmm. Just so happened that we were also in the business and backed him, right?
Well, and for him, I mean, it's like you said, it's a massive shortcut. He didn't have to figure out and make all those mistakes on his own. He just got to walk in and do what he does and run the play. Right,
and it's worked out well. Having a playbook already built, he just steps in and is just Anthony, which is a very unique, dynamic individual, and it's worked out really well. I think we're in our 4th year now, and it's doing amazing. So
he was full under a year, right?
He was. Mm-hmm. Yep, he was. And we started from scratch, and quite honestly, we didn't do much of a pre-sale. So that's where we probably swung and missed, was not doing a real relevant pre-sale to that, because we were just running and gunning with lots of different business opportunities, and just was doing it almost as a side project. But just based on who he is and having a good business structure and having fallen on a business model that works, he was able to build it up and make it work really well. So operating manual or business systems, you need to start now. That's something you can do. That's almost part of your business plan in so many ways, because that dictates what, again, structure, size, equipment choices, all those things. Yeah. What is that business going to be? And if you're kind of running your operations manual now as a coach, you're just not thinking of it through the lens of also being a facility owner. And so again, if you don't understand how to build an operations manual, once again, would that be a good reason to buy a fitness franchise? 100%.
Yep. Cool. All right. So the last one, you said it a couple of times. This is the end game.
Yeah. A lot of fitness professionals, they love what they do. And so to them, this is all they're ever going to do. Like, this is it. This is end all be all, right? This is all I ever want to do. And that's great. But I would say that certainly from the investor side, and typically if you have someone who's going to be an investor, they're either going to just be your bank, or a lot of times they're going to be an equity partner, which means they're going to own shares in your company. They're going to want to have an exit at some point because they need to get a return on their investment, right? So if you look at the current landscape of fitness, there's a lot of private equity money investing into franchising and franchises, right? Or fitness in general. Why do they do that? They're going to buy it. They're going to go 4 to 6 years. They're going to push to build it, and they're going to flip it and sell it to some other money group, right? And make their money and move on. That's their job. They are responsible to their investors that they're pulling the funds from to invest in projects that are going to make money, period. And so you should think like that as well. So, when you think about having an end game, the ultimate stamp of approval on a project that you've created or purchased or built as an entrepreneur is someone else saying that there's value in it. And there's no better way for them to say there's value in it than they're willing to buy it. Well, even if you don't want to sell your business, so maybe this is a good way to look at it. So Matt, if I asked you, look, you're going to sell your business 1 year from today, So if that was the case and you had a ticking clock now, what would you do with those employees or team members that you had that you thought might be a little overpaid that weren't performing well? Would you keep them?
Probably not.
No, you'd trim some fat, right? What about the extraneous expenses in your business? Because if you're going to sell it, you're going to get a multiple of the profits, right? Or EBITDA, or we'll just say profits for the sake of this conversation. And so wouldn't you trim some fat? Right. So you would trim fat. So you're getting rid of toxic employees. You're trimming fat. You would look for efficiencies in your business. You would look for any way to drive a more profit in your business because that's the metric that you're going to take and get a multiple on. Yes?
Yeah. And get it ready to sell.
Right. Let's say you did all of those things with this 1 year ticking clock, and then you decided not to sell your business. Would you not still have a much better business if you ran your business through the lens of having the end game of selling?
Absolutely.
Exactly. And that's an exercise that we went through. There's a great book called Built to Sell, and we went through an exercise with the guy we talked about earlier, Tim Fulton, and we went through all the different facets of your business and how you could tidy them up to prepare it for a sell. And then that was the question at the end. Even if you didn't sell, doesn't your business look 100 times better? So I would say that if your end game is to stay in business forever, you just have to be really careful not to run it as if you could sell it, because I think every entrepreneur would like that opportunity.
Right.
What if you were running your business and you were an active part of it and you fell ill, you got cancer? Who's going to run that business, right? What if you want to leave a legacy and you want the business to continue to grow without you, but you step off a curb one day and get hit by a bus, right? Business done, right? And so I think when you look at your end game, you make decisions that help you build your business. So in that same course that I was telling you about, Matt, there was a really great story, and this was about a custom home builder. And so this is someone who had been building homes forever. He had made a lot of money in homes. He didn't have a lot of business value per se, but he had cash flowed the business pretty well, and he had enough set aside where he was going to retire. So let's just say he's in his mid to late 60s. And he's like, all right, I'm going to sell this business. So he shops it around with some agents, and he finds that he can make around a 3 multiple, right, on his profits. And right now he's profiting, let's say $100,000 a year. They're probably a little low. Let's say he's making $100,000 a year. And he's like, okay, well, that, I don't want to sell it for $300,000. It seems like it's worth more than that. So let me see if I can do some of the things that you and I just talked about. Let me see if I can improve my business processes so that I can make more profit. Well, his biggest expense was the loan, the construction loan ended up being one of the bigger expenses. And that was based on how long he had to have this line of credit or this loan, to acquire the goods and services to build this home, right? So he's like, what if I could cut the time from building a custom home down from 6 months to say 3 months? That's what I need to do to make more profit, right? So that I can make a higher multiple, because I'm going to get this 3 multiple. I can sell it to someone else, right? So he takes this playbook of 6 months and he says, all right, I have to build this custom home now in 3 months. So he starts with a finished home and he reverse engineers it for 3 months. And in the process, he has to get very detailed. So he builds a detailed manual of how to build this home step by step by step by step and how to do it in 3 months. Well, lo and behold, Next year rolls around. Now he's doing, he went from $100,000 in profit to $200,000 in profit. And that was because of his efforts. He cut down his expenses. He was much more efficient, And so he takes his business to market to sell. And instead of getting a 3 multiple, he gets a 10 multiple.
Wow.
Now, why do you think he got a 10 multiple?
Because he was very efficient. He had business systems, and it was all laid out for the next person.
He had a 3-month manual on how to build his custom home, his processes that he could turn and hand to anybody that didn't know anything about custom home building. He ended up selling that business to another company that knew nothing about building custom homes. But he didn't sell anything but that systematic operations manual, step by step by step by step, right, on how to build that business. And I think in the course, they jokingly said that he called it his $2 million manual because he went from
$300K
to $2 million just by having a systematic approach, right? So if you look at your end game, this really feeds back into business systems, operations manual, and all the way back into having a business plan to start out. You're not doing those things just so you can survive your first 5 years. You're doing that because at the end of that, if those things are in place, you're going to have something that is really worth something. And so if you do need to sell or you do get sick or something happens, even if you're just a mom and pop business, you're going to be so much more valuable. Sometimes the difference between 300,000 and 2 million.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, life-changing money for some folks, right? And so when you look at that through the lens of a fit pro moving into entrepreneurship, if you're not going to build all the things we talked about in steps 1 and 2, you better buy a fitness franchise, honestly. And I will say this as well. Typically, fitness franchises will get a higher multiple from a buyer than an individual mom and pop gym. Why? Because they understand that if the head honcho guy who built it or girl who built this thing leaves, there's still a bigger system behind it running. And we see this play out in the financial realm. I have a good buddy that does mergers and acquisitions. And if he sells a 10-store franchised package, he gets a much, much higher multiple than he does if he sells a one-off gym.
Yeah, there's probably not very many of those happening, I would guess.
No, in this day and age, there's very many one-off gyms that are selling at all, unless maybe a bigger gym rolls in and wants to just gobble up their membership. But they're giving you pennies on the dollar. You're not getting that,
right?
Not even that 3 multiple, honestly, unless you're selling to someone within the organization that plans to step up and run it forever. So if you want to sell, if you're considering an end game of making an exit at some point and making really good money, you're much better off being in a financial structure. And you know what? It goes back to who's going to fund you from your business plan. Savvy investors understand that from the get.
Yep.
They understand that, why do you think the guy in South Florida said, go find me a fitness franchise that you and I can invest in? You can run them. I'll invest, because he knows that his end game is probably to invest in 3 to 5 years. He's going to sell out, at least his portion. He's going to get a much higher multiple in a franchise structure than he would in a individual structure. So
makes sense.
I mean, again, we talked a lot about franchising. Obviously, we're selling a franchise, so we look at things through that lens quite a bit. But this is relevant information for any fitness pro that wants to make that transition. You can go at it on your own. The percentage chances don't love you. And if you honestly just want to shortcut the whole thing and find a relevant investor that can help you out, I'd do a fitness franchise. And if it was just me, Matt, personally, I would do an Alloy franchise. That's just me.
Just you?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why. I don't have a liking to it. I like the brand.
It's a pretty good brand.
It's a pretty good brand. I think the guy that runs it's pretty stand-up guy from what I understand.
The guy that makes all the stuff's pretty good, but it's fine.
And the guy that does the workouts is not that dynamic. I can't remember. What's his name? Helland?
Yeah.
Matthew something. But the owner, though, that guy, CEO, yeah, that's something else. But look, man, I hope any of you guys that are fitness pros, that at least it gives you a better idea of what it takes to transition from fit pro to entrepreneur. And if you want to hear more about Alloy, reach out to us. But in all seriousness, man, it's a big ocean. There's tons of room for everyone to be successful. So I welcome any relevant players in the market, whether they're with Alloy or not. I wish that you were, but if you're not, come on, man, let's change some lives, get some people healthy.
Awesome.
Thanks, buddy.
Appreciate you.